Welcome everyone to another Revenue Roundtable. I'm Mitch Lee, Profit Evangelist at Roundtable, and we're going to spend under 10 minutes discussing what's being reported in business news, what's top of mind for the Roundtable customer community, and what are tips, tricks, and capabilities to turn concerns into opportunities. With me today is Ben Blaney, Vice President of Business Consulting here in North America. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Glad to see you again. First up, what's catching your eye in business news? What's something that's important for businesses to be aware of right now?
Well, Mitch, for companies, including Vanova, actually on a calendar-based fiscal reporting period, we closed Q2 of 2021 last week. And so what that means is, firstly, we've had a couple of days to decompress and relax from that pressure, but also for public companies who report their financial performance, in the next week or so and the week after that, we'll be seeing lots of companies report their revenue, earnings, and the other financial obligations that they have to do. Call me a kind of bit of a nerd about this stuff, but this is a really exciting part of the year for me. Happens 4 times and I get giddy thinking about it. I like to look at companies, all kinds of companies I used to work for, companies I have friends at, Vendavo customers, to see what they're saying publicly about how they're doing, and to be frank, the customers of our competitors too. It's called earnings season. These are earnings reports, earnings calls, earnings releases, and that's what we exist for, to drive profitable growth for organizations. And so it's super interesting for me to see where earnings are coming from.
Absolutely, man. I must admit, I too have a litany of stock ticker symbols that I track on my phone every now and then, just to kind of feel good about some and feel better about others, of course. So in the earnings calls, there's a lot of documents, there's a lot of information coming across. You do this for fun. What are the things that tickle your heart? What are the things that you look for that make a difference to you as saying somebody's doing well?
Yeah, well, first, I think it's important to remember that there are different parts of the packages and the releases. So first, there's the mandatory financial reports in sort of fairly structured formats: the cash flow statement, the income statement, and the balance sheet. Okay, they're required by the regulatory authorities, and they're interesting. And then there are more glossy, sometimes sort of PowerPoint-based releases, summarized informations, and these go in tandem with an earnings call, where sometimes they'll go through those slides, they'll cover prepared remarks, followed by a Q&A section. I think we can think of these two things sort of slightly separately. The financial statements, they're required. It's dry, it's corporate performance, it's interesting. The other stuff, the glossy packet, the prepared remarks, and the Q&A, we can think of that as the company advertising itself to prospective investors. And therefore, I like to look at what they're saying. They tend to be very optimistic: market opportunities, we're doing well, we're a well-run organization, those sorts of things. But I think it's also interesting to look at what they don't say, reading between the lines, looking at the nuance, looking at the subtlety. And then I think the last thing that I find super interesting, only some companies do this. Lots of companies have, standard procedure is you have the CEO and the CFO on the call. Other companies bring people in here and there, change things around. And I have a couple of theories about what's going on there. Sometimes that's based on who is got a very good story to tell, who's got a great success that they want to, remember, it's advertising, advertise to the marketplace and tell investors that they're really good. And the other thing, my hunch says, is that this can be a kind of proving ground for future leaders in an organization. Come on the earnings call, give it a try. Let's see how we do. Let's get you some exposure to this attention, to these questions from the analysts and so on. Very interesting, Mitch.
Yeah, absolutely. As people check their lieutenants, and as their lieutenants prove their worth, absolutely. I also get a kick out of in those calls, in the live calls, the analysts, the little sneaky questions that they have all the time, as well as My favorite part of all the financial documents, the footnotes, when they explain all the exceptions to the rules. That's a ton of fun. But all right, tons of information coming across there. The financially regulated reporting, the advertisements, as you said. Are there particular pieces of information, particular sets of offerings of how things are going that really resonate with you, that really tell what is happening with the company?
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's a tightrope for companies to walk in these things, in that, particularly as it pertains to price. Big companies, all companies, are aware that their customers are necessarily sensitive to what they're doing around price. So it's hard for companies to make a big song and dance to say, ha, 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 we're putting loads of price in the marketplace and our customers are sucking it up. Okay, they have to be slightly balanced and slightly nuanced about it. And that's interesting to watch. So again, reading between the lines, looking at subtlety. However, there's one graphic, a chart, that almost every company includes. Sometimes it's in a tabular format, but lots of people do it as a graphic, which is, it's a margin bridge. It's period over period margin performance. What changed over time? How much did we get from price? How much did we get from volume? What happened in mix? Sometimes you've got foreign exchange in there, that kind of thing. I find that chart to be tremendously illuminating. It's where we can see how well an organization is doing in price as well as in these other areas. And I think it's interesting to ponder on what's going on behind the scenes. These reports, these releases to the public have a great deal of scrutiny inside large public companies. And so you better believe folks have looked at that stuff. And I like to ponder on what conversations have gone on behind the scenes between the CFO, the CFO, and everybody else, saying, hey, we're saying we got quite a lot of price or not very much price. How do we feel about that? Is that acceptable? Is that too much? Not enough? Do we look competent? Do we look like we're underperforming? I think that's incredibly interesting. And then from my point of view, I like to think about, CFOs tend to be, people of action, want to drive positive performance next time around. And I like to think about the capabilities that exist in these companies to double click, drive through the high level summarized corporate numbers to get to something which tells us at a business unit level how well things are going, turning to actual action at the ground level of everything. So yeah, that area, that margin bridge, is something I look out for in particular.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I love about our margin bridge analyzer is that, yes, of course, it does that high level margin bridge walk, the revenue walk, that's absolutely de rigor for financial reporting at that level. But we're able to work with that same methodology and drill down into different BUs, compare BUs to BUs, compare product lines to product lines, call regional sales regions to another regional sales region, using all that same methodology repeatedly, reliably, and rapidly on a driving action. Throats to choke, as it were. So who's in charge of volume, who's in charge of pricing, and making sure the folks are accountable. Ben, thanks so much for joining us. Great to hear from you today.
Yeah, would love to talk longer, Mitch, but I've got earnings calls to read.
Of course you do. And for all those watching or listening today, thanks for being with us. Be sure to contact us at profit@vendavo.com to let us know if you have any topics you'd like for us to address on the next Revenue Roundtable. So until we speak again, have a profitable day.